Hi everyone, my name is Jean-Christophe. In this beginner Python tutorial, we will learn about Python strings. Strings in Python are used to define text components that are stored as a string data type. Strings can be surrounded by single quote and double quote, such as what we see right here. Now let's get started with some examples. So first we can print a string, so we can say print hello world, or we can print hello double quote hello world. If we run this, then we'll see that both strings can be printed similarly. We can also assign strings to a variable. So we can say variable equal hello. And then if we return the variable, then we'll return the string. We can also do multi-line strings. So in order to do multi-lines, we either use triple quotes using the double quote symbol or triple quotes using the single quote symbol. So we can do here, enter, and then I could say, hello, I am JC. And you can assign that to a variable such as X, and then you can print X. As we can see, the string was printed in multi-line. Or alternatively, just like what we just mentioned, we could just say, we can just use the triple quotes to do the same, the double quotes to do the same multi-line comment. So now let's look at nested strings. So if you have a quote, if you want to do a string where you quote somebody, so you could say, my friend said, and then if you use double quotes, hey, listen to me. What will return here is an error, because essentially what you're saying is you're closing the first string, adding a syntax error there, and add some other quote. So in order to nest this, you can do one of two things. So you could potentially use triple quotes, like this, and this would probably work if you return it. However, this is not the best way to do it. Essentially, in Python, it was thought of a way to actually do this is to replace the double quote for single quotes. So you can nest single quotes within a string with double quote. So this is the same as the English language. You would use single quote inside double quotes, and then it would return this properly. So yeah, so let's move to triple nest. You can also do a triple nesting in Python. So essentially, you could say if you have a sentence that said, my, let's take double quote here, and you could add this and put this variable. So I could have a paragraph saying, my friend said, and then I use a single quote inside. Hey, listen to what he said. And then, so you have one sentence within a sentence and within a sentence. So what you could do here, you could do the backtick. You could use the backtick and say it is possible to triple nest strings in Python. Yay! So you've just triple nested, so you could then decide to close that sentence and say, what a dumb idea. And then you could close that single nest. So you would have that sentence. He said, it is possible to trim nest. And then that first guy, what a dumb idea. And then you could say, what a jerk. So the first guy said, what a jerk. My friend said, what a jerk. So we just triple nest And if we just return x here, we can see that everything was returned properly. We could print this, print x, and it would be returned. So this can be useful when dealing with Python to know how to triple nest. So let's move to indexing strings. So a string in Python is an array. So it can be considered such as an array. An array is when you have multiple elements within a single variable. Um, so you could select each letter individually using its index. So again, Python is using zero-based indexing. So the first letter would be X, and you would use the square brackets in order to select. And then you would say 0, and then you would return the first letter. So it's zero indexing. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you want to select the last letter instead, you could say print x minus 1. So if you don't know about indexing, you'll learn in another tutorial of mine, but you can see the last letter right there using the x minus 1. So a string in Python is an array. So it can be considered such as an array. An array is when you have multiple elements within a single variable. Um, so you could select each letter individually using its index. So again, Python is using zero-based indexing. So the first letter would be X, and you would use the square brackets in order to select. And then you would say 0, and then you would return the first letter. So it's zero indexing. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you want to select the last letter instead, you could say print x minus 1. So if you don't know about indexing, you'll learn in another tutorial of mine, but you can see the last letter right there using the x minus 1. It can be also useful to loop through a Python string. So you could say for letter in Python, in X or in Python, you could say print the letter. So then you can loop through a string just as you would loop through any array, and you would print the letter. Next, let's learn about slicing strings. Slicing in Python is when you want to select a part of an array. So in this case, we have this sentence, and I would like to slice it. I would like to select one part of the string. So I could use X, and I could use here, and I would select multiple characters. So I would select from the first index to the 4, and 4 excluded. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So as we can see, we end up with LIC, which is the first, the second, and the third index from the string. We can see that the S was excluded again because we're zero-based indexing. We can also slice the array, the string from the start. So in order to slice the array from the start, we would use, again, the square brackets. But this time, instead of putting the first variable, the first number, we just put the last index that we want to be included. So again, 9, the index 9 would be excluded. And by not putting the first number, it would be implied that we want to start from the beginning of the string. And now we can see that I've selected slice me. To do the opposite, if you want to slice from the end of the to the end of the string, what you would do is you would use X square brackets, and then you would put the first index. You would put the first index that you want to be included. And so I would take the 9, and you would use column and not put the last index, and then it would be implied that you want to go to the end. So like a cake. We can also do negative slicing. So we just saw a little what was a negative index, but we could say print X column up to the last letter, but that would exclude the last letter because you're saying up to the last but not included. Again, the last number within that formula is not included. Now let's investigate a bit what are inside strings. We can do a bunch of methods to interact with the string, such as knowing how long the string is. So we can use the length method and know that my full name has 25 characters in it. If I want to know the number of E's that are inside, I could use the count method and put E, and I would return the number of E's. If I want to know if a string contains another part of string, then I could use the if, and then I could say Christ in X print yes it is, else print no it is not. So you'll see that Python is case sensitive. So Christ is definitely in my name, uh, but since I wasn't using the capital letter, then it couldn't understand it. So it just said, no, Christ is not in it. And in a way, they are right because it is capital case, title case. So what I could do instead is I could say just lowercase the entire name. And then if I run this again, we will see that I know that Christ is in. So this is a good segue into the next section where we want to modify strings. So if I start with my full name, I could say I want a lowercase. If I want to change, I could say, okay, put lowercase. I could X lower, just as what we've seen. I could uppercase this, X upper, and I could also title case, for instance, X title. And if I print all these things, we'll see that, okay, we can modify the string in such a way that we change a casing within it. We can also do other things like remove extra spaces from a string. So in order to remove spaces, we will use the strip method. So X strip. And what the strip method will do is it will remove the extra space at the beginning and at the end of the string, but will not remove the spaces between the words. If we want to replace all the white spaces within a string, what we need to do is we will need to use the replace method. So if we come here, we can say X replace, and you put the character that you want to replace first, and then you put the character for what you want to replace it with. So I could replace it with nothing, or I could replace it with the number 3 or whatever I want. And then if I return this, I will see that all white spaces were removed. However, if I show X, X wasn't completely changed. It was just temporarily changed. So that means that when you use the replace method, what you need to do is you need to reassign the value to X, and then you can have permanently or semi-permanently change the variable. So we don't have to remove only white spaces. We can remove whatever we want. So for instance, we can replace letters by other letters. Here, what we want to do is we want to create a simple encryption password, for instance. I have that password and I want to replace each letter for another letter. So first, we haven't seen looping through dictionary, so I'll do a simple introduction. We will use the items method within the dictionary. What the items method does is it converts your dictionary to a list of tuples. So if I do for I in items and then I print I, you'll see that I will print each tuple. So in order to instead loop through each items and within each item, I could say for key value, so for each key and its value, then I could just decide to replace X, replace key by its value. And then if I return this X value, the X variable, I can see that I've encrypted the password right now. If I want to decrypt that message, I could say for key value in encrypt items, then I could say X replace, instead of key and value, I replace value and key in the opposite direction, and I return X, and I have my password back. We can also split strings. So here I have a string, and I want to split it to the comma separator. So what I would do is I would create a new variable named splitx and equal x split, and I would use a comma, and then if I show splitx, I will see that I now have a list with each item separated. Be mindful that the space is still there. The white space wasn't removed by splitting, so just know this. If you want to join back that string, if you want to bring them back to a single string, because if we look at splitx type, we can see this is a list. If you want to bring back the list into a string, what you use is the join method. So you use a comma, so what you want the separator to be, and you say join splitx. And again, if you return splitx without reassigning, this hasn't changed. So what you would need to do is you would need to reassign the join to a variable, and you would say splitx. This brings me to talk about the next subject, which is concatenating strings. So joining strings together. So multiple ways we can concatenate strings. So for instance, if I want to do a full name by doing this, I would say x plus y to variable, and I would see that, okay, this was joined together. If I want to instead add a space within my concatenation, I wouldn't just need to put a string within it, and I could concatenate easily this way. An alternative way, and this will bring me into one of the most interesting thing we can do with Python, I believe, is to use f strings. So if you would like, for instance, add my name equal JC, and you would use the age equal 12. If I want to do name plus age, then I end up with an error because the data type is not the same. This brings me to one thing that is interesting. Again, F strings. So what an F string is a string that it starts with the F letter here. So what it does is when you ever put a string, you could decide to use the square brackets to add a variable inside it. And in this case, I could add multiple elements, and I am age. So as you can see, I can now use f string. I can now use f string to add multiple variables within a string, regardless of the data type. We can also count with f string. So if I copy this entire string again, I could say age times 3 because I'm not really 12. let's see. Hello, I'm JC and I am 36. So now I can do some arithmetic within the string, and this is can be super useful if you kind of automate a written report that you want to send to your boss or whatever. You could put these variables and calculations within your strings that you return. You can also apply various kinds of methods. So if we bring back here and we remove that, you could say, okay, I want my name to be lowercase. So then I could say F lower, and now I can see that JC was returned as a lowercase. That was a very simple introduction to strings and especially F strings. So I would urge you to dive deeper into F strings because they are amazing. And there are many methods that I haven't discussed here. So you can look at a lot of the useful Python strings method here and what they do. This comes from W3 School. They have even more examples there. So that was the end of this beginner Python tutorial on Python strings. Please like and subscribe to this channel and make sure you keep a keen eye on this. I'm coming up with a course. So subscribe to this channel or head over to my website and subscribe to my newsletter if you want to be the first to know. Thank you very much. See you next time.